sent you?
Me. Bump, he probably got a whole squad on his tail too.
Yeah, this motherfucker's trouble.
So that Godfather of Harlem season 4 episode 7. So Frank Lucas is being targeted by an Italian, and everybody's kind of like playing coy on like who could it possibly be, because now they show Frank Lucas showing up at St. Clair, at the St. Clair's club and Joe Colombo, he's sitting there. He like, nah, who does God think he is? Now, here's the thing. Here's like one of like the tidbits what they did with Frank Lucas. So when he showed up with like the coat, it was slightly, I think it was like a tease from like in the original picture from when the actual Frank Lucas had like the suit. And I was like, okay, they did like a little reference tease right there. And then like the girlfriend, where she got blown up in the car. So I'm like, okay, because in the future he goes out with like, I believe she was a Puerto Rican pageant model or something, and he has a child by her. So it's like, but that comes way later. So I'm like, okay, and then that's when you see him like seeking out like Bumpy Johnson's help, because he's like, yo, Bumpy, like, I need some help, man. And that's when he's like, there's nothing I could do. I can't help you. Just good luck. And it's like, he just can't help him, he can't help him. So that's when Frank is kind of like on his own, because somebody sends like an assassin to try to kill Frank, but Frank kills the assassin. And then that's when he's trying to like seek out help, but he can't get any help. And then Stella, he talks to Stella about it, and she basically cuts him off because he was, I guess, helping her move like some of the drugs, the doogie, moving some of the doogie in, I think, Philadelphia, I believe. I think Philadelphia. I think that's when he was like moving some of the, I guess, like the drugs over there, but had to cut him off because they don't know who exactly is, who put the bounty on his head. Now, here's another bit. So the whole $10,000 bounty that was on Frank Lucas's head, that's something that was actually beforehand in the actual story of Frank Lucas, because I think this is when he came over to, like New York City, and I think when he came to Harlem, I think the bounty was already on his head. And I think at the time of the story, I think either Bumpy Johnson paid off the bounty, or he killed the hitman, or killed the person who put the bounty on Frank's head. I forgot one of the two, but I think it was where he killed the guy who put the bounty on Frank's head. I think it was something like that in the story, but they kind of like did it early, and it was like, oh, somebody put the bounty on his head. So they're already setting up the pieces, and they're going to have Bumpy Johnson take out this guy, or the assassin, or whoever that actually put the bounty on Frank's head. That's going to come. Now, for the Italian family member who probably did it, I mean, Joe Colombo looks like he's good for it. He does look like he's kind of good for it, but then he's dealing with his own problems, because you already got the FBI Pike. He's already up his ass like, hey man, you killed a couple of people. The business that you got right here isn't really looking too well. And that's when Joe Colombo's talking to his lawyer, and he's trying to figure this out, like, yo, like, this FBI guy's up my ass. I'm trying to handle business and do things right, but he's not gonna let this go. So Joe provokes him by basically having his daughter was at the gas station, and that's when he heard everything, and like, what the fuck? So his wife calls him, and it was like, yeah, it was a common courtesy of Joe Colombo, because his daughter was at the gas station. It was like, what the hell? So he sends cops over there to beat up Joe and his guys, and he's like, yeah, stay away from Pike. I'm like, oh shit. See, it's very interesting how you have like the Italians and black people as a whole, because we all know like the story about the Italians, because I believe the whole thing was when Mussolini was in charge, and all the Italians had to scatter, and they all left, and that's when they came to America. Like the 5 families came to America, and they essentially dominated America, and they had their different parts. Like one went to Queens, one went to New York, one went to Chicago, one went to California, I think there was one in Miami, Florida. I could be wrong, but they basically like scattered everywhere. So I was like, okay. And then with black people as a whole, it was like black people was always oppressed. They was always oppressed because of the color of their skin, and also because of how they were. So it was like their features, their skin color, the way that they are, the way that they move, their music. It's like, oh, it was disgusting to a lot of people, and it's like we can't get down with this. We gotta oppress these people. We gotta slave these people because we just don't like who they are, right? Their skin color disgusts us, right? So it's very interesting, like how like the Italians, like no, it was interesting how like Joe Colombo came over to Bumpy. He's like, how is it that you ain't being oppressed by these people? Like they not looking for you, but they looking for me. Like what the fuck? And that's when you had Bumpy like, I paid my dues. He told him, he's just like, listen, I paid my dues. Like they ain't looking for me like that. But then at the ending, you seen like the tease where it was like, they gotta figure a way of trying to get Joe Colombo, and obviously they're gonna do it through Bumpy because the whole partnership. Because Bumpy didn't want anything to do with the Italians. He wanted to just have black owned, but then because what Frank did, which made Bumpy give up the whole slight, not ownership, but just part of his money has to go to the Italians, because he's like, listen, he didn't want anything to do with it. But you could thank Frank for that, because Frank was a damn pisshead for that shit of having his man Chance get kidnapped and tortured for like a little bit. So it's like, and it's gonna cause Special Agent Pike to just come along, go to Bumpy and be like, listen, Bump, I know what's going on around here, and you better make this right, or we gonna include you in this shit too. So he's gonna have to figure a way of cutting out Joe Colombo, but also at the same time not hurting his club that he got, because the club is freshly new. He built it in the honor of Stephanie St. Clair, the woman that was his mentor and the woman that actually taught him. Basically just left everything to him, and it's an honor to her. So I'm like, okay, right? So Bumpy is kind of like in a jam right now. I like the story, what they're doing with like Elise and Sadiq, because the way she was writing the story to Sadiq's son and about wishing that she's had more time, I was confused until I think maybe the ending, because the way that she was talking, my brains was thinking about Omar, like how she was saying that she wanted like more time and wishing. Maybe it was too. Maybe I would say like a small glimmer if it was, but then she was writing a letter to her father saying that even though they're fighting for the same causes, but it's for like different. It's like they on the same side, but it's like different in a way. But I was like, okay, so was it about Bumpy? But I was thinking like both things. Like it was probably Bumpy, and it was probably like Omar at the same time, but just different. But then you had that, and then you had Mamie trying to like get on the board of the whole art museum and trying to sell like black paintings and trying to like get Harlem out there. But then you got these people on the committee, and they like, well, listen, because of your husband's transactions and his past history, because she tries to go to the bank to get a loan, they said no, and then that's when she had to sell off her jewelry. Just to get the money, just to get in. But then they was like, well, you can't go by Mamie Johnson, you got to go by Mamie Hatcher. And she's like, what you mean? Like, and they like, listen, that's what it is. They want too much, and it's understandable because of Bumpy Johnson's past history. That's understandable, but it's just like the way that they was wanting shit. They was demanding like, nah, man, like you can't. Next thing on price say, oh, if you really want to get to this higher position, right, this prestige edition, you have to divorce your husband. Like, and it seems like they trying to like get to that point in my eyes, because it's like you're expecting more from her. And it's like, we understand because of Bumpy, but it's like, this is something for her to do. But she sells the jewelry, she gets in, but then that's when at the ending, well, close to the ending, because when Bumpy Johnson turns away Frank, and that's when Frank, he talked to Stella, and she tells him that she doesn't know who put the bounty on his head, and suggests that he leaves New York City and leave Harlem. So that's when he has like the fancy coat. He tries to sell it, but then he sells it to the pawn shop guy for information on where did Mamie actually take her jewelry to sell. So that's when he robs the place, gets shot in the process, and that's when he's on top of Bumpy Johnson's table. And that's when he like, you stole my, like, you got back my wife's jewelry. Why did you do it? And he was like, I'm trying to get in your good graces, basically. I'm trying to do the right thing. So that's when Bumpy was like, all right. Let's you did the right thing. And Bumpy sees something in Frank. He sees something in Frank, like he could be great. He could do great. So I'm like, okay. And that's when you seen at the end, he accepts it. He accepts Frank, and he will protect Frank. And that's when you see him and Frank like they was playing chess. And then the way that Bumpy Johnson told him about like using like the pawns as your own family. And it's like, that's another hint of what actually happens in the story of how Frank Lucas was actually using his family and, with the whole drug game, because Frank's rise doesn't take place. I think it was either late 60s, 70s. I believe that's when his reign started to take place, because obviously nobody doesn't really know the story. A little spoiler. It's after Bumpy Johnson's demise. After his demise, right? That's when Frank Lucas is gonna take over, because that's all it is. Like, if anybody who never watched American Gangster, you wouldn't know. If you haven't seen the movie, you would. Okay, if you've seen the movie, you would know. But if you haven't seen the movie, you wouldn't know. But it's there, and the way that they trying to set it up of Bumpy Johnson trying to teach Frank and trying to like teach him the game and trying to like smarten him up, and it's like, yeah, he's going to smarten him up because he sees a great future in Frank. Even though Chance and Pettigrew like, nah, Bump, we don't like this kid. Especially Chance, because he's beating him up in there. So you're like, nah, man, I don't know about this kid. But we do know they are going to be, Frank and Bumpy going to be around for a minute. And then that's when I think in the story, that's when Bumpy's going to go after the person who put the bounty on his head. I'm guessing, see, I would like to say it was Stella, but I'm like, nah, I wouldn't say that. I could say it could have been Pino, but I'm like, I don't know. It got to be somebody who have like this hate, disdain for like Frank. I don't know. It could be one of the Italian families. I'm thinking maybe Joe, maybe Pino, maybe Stella. Who knows? Everybody's kind of like playing coy at the moment of who put the bounty on his head and why they want him dead and all this other jazz. But again, this episode was great. I always love Godfather of Harlem. It's the fact that it's like it tells you like these great stories, shit that happened about the 60s and the past, and about how all this racist stuff that was racist stuff that was happening back in the days with the cops and all this drama and all this rhetoric, even though it may not be as strong as it was back then, but the lingering stench and that lingering foul stench of what happened still applies till this day. It may not be as strong, but we all know that foul stench ain't going nowhere. You still got people out there who still a little about certain things. So yeah, but man, I can't wait for the next episode. Next episode is going to be good. But as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll catch you all in the next one.